Do you ever have difficulty deciphering the elevation certificate? This presentation will help answer these questions. In our presentation today, I'll be taking a deeper look into the elevation certificate and teaching you how to avoid some of the common pitfalls surrounding the elevation certificate. We'll start by looking at the basic building blocks of the elevation certificate, in particular the 3 W's. We'll also take a look at the different sections that are found in the elevation certificate, along with some common application errors that are tied to the elevation certificate. To begin our understanding of the elevation certificate, we will look at some common questions that I like to call the 3 W's. The first W indicates when an elevation certificate is required. An elevation certificate is required for properties that are post-firm construction and are located in zones beginning with the letter A or V or the special flood hazard areas. Elevation certificates are optional for structures that are pre-firm construction in zones beginning with the letter A or V. If the elevation certificate leads to beneficial rates, then the elevation certificate may be applied. However, if the elevation certificate does not result in more favorable rates, the elevation certificate will not be required. Structures that are located in zones beginning with the letter B, C, or X, which are the non-special flood hazard areas, the elevation certificate is not required and not a consideration for rating. Our second W is, where do I get an elevation certificate? Start by contacting the local community officials. Communities will often keep copies of completed elevation certificates. Remember that older copies of already completed elevation certificates are acceptable. Also, some communities will allow the elevation certificate to be filed along with the property deed. The seller or developer may also have a copy of a completed elevation certificate. If that structure was post-firm construction in a special flood hazard area, elevation information may have been a requirement at the time of the construction loan or the buyer loan. The insured may have to hire a licensed surveyor, licensed engineer, or a licensed architect to complete the elevation certificate. The cost of the elevation certificate will vary from community to community. The final W asks, why are elevation certificates required? An elevation certificate is a tool used to determine if a structure was constructed in compliance with floodplain management guidelines. Another requirement the elevation certificate brings is the submission of photographs. Photos are required with all new elevation-rated business applications. Each application must have a minimum of 2 photographs. If more photographs are available, they should be submitted. Photographs should be of different sides of the structure, at least one of the front of the structure, one of the back of the structure. The underwriter uses these photographs to verify underwriting information such as the foundation type, the number of floors, and the use of that structure. Photographs also assist when verifying venting information in A zones. The smallest size of acceptable photographs is 3 by 3. Color photographs are also required. Photographs must be dated within 90 days of the application mail date. Photographs that are taken from website photos such as Google are not acceptable and cannot be considered. The date the photographs were taken and put online is usually not available, so the National Flood Insurance Program will not accept these types of photographs as proper documentation. Another area of concern is photographs that are taken from realtor websites. Just as we discussed in the previous slide, the date of realtor website photographs cannot be properly documented, so they will not be an acceptable form of documentation. When taking photographs, make sure that the photograph clearly shows the detail of the structure. That will include foundation, the number of floors, and the multiple sides of the structure. The photo on our screen is not an acceptable photograph because the fence is obscuring the foundation, which means that the underwriter is not able to verify the foundational details. Section A of the elevation certificate is designed for the property location information. A2 is the property address. This field must reflect the actual address of the property or the legal description for the structure that's being insured. No post office boxes or route numbers are accepted in this section. A2 must also match the address that's found on the application. A3 is the property description. This could be a legal description or a lot or a block number or possibly the tax parcel number. A4 is the building use. Examples of building use include a residential property or possibly a non-residential structure. Maybe it's a detached garage. A5 includes the latitude, longitude, as well as the horizontal datum. Both of these items are optional. If not included on the elevation certificate, the National Flood Insurance Program allows the underwriter to search for those items. Not having these two items on the elevation certificate will not negate the validity of the elevation certificate. Another common error as it applies to the property address section is the property address itself. Make sure that the address that's entered on the application matches the address that's found in line A2 of the elevation certificate. If the elevation certificate was based off of a legal description, make a note indicating that the elevation certificate lists the legal description. However, the application is based off of the 911 address. A7, A8, and A9 are integral parts of Section A. A7 is the building diagram. The National Flood Insurance Program indicates that almost any type of structure fits into three basic categories: structures that are built on a slab, structures that have a basement, or structures that are elevated. These three types of structures are then divided into 11 different diagram numbers. Each diagram describes a foundation of a structure. A8 is reserved for structures that are elevated on piers, posts, pilings, columns, or parallel shear walls that have a crawl space or an enclosure located below the lowest elevated living floor. This section is used to determine if the enclosure or the crawl space has been built in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program's floodplain management guidelines. The surveyor is required to provide the square footage of the crawl space or enclosure, the number of permanent flood openings that are no more than 1 foot off of the ground. The certificate also indicates if vents are engineered flood openings. A9 on the elevation certificate reflects information about an attached garage. Like A8, this section contains the square footage of the attached garage, the number of permanent flood openings, as well as the total net area of openings. If the elevation certificate has information in Section A about a crawl space or an enclosure or even attached garage, ensure that that information is entered correctly on the application. The example on our screen indicates that the structure does indeed have an attached garage. However, when the application was submitted, no information about the garage was entered. Another common error is dealing with the building diagram. Again, verify that the information entered on the application is reflecting what is found on the elevation certificate. Section B of the elevation certificate provides common information about the flood insurance rate map. B1, B2, and B3 indicate the community name number, the county name, and the state that the structure is located. B4 and B5 indicate the specific flood insurance rate map that the property is located on. B6 is the firm index date and will give the date of the original flood insurance rate map. B7 is the date of the most current flood insurance rate map. B8, B9, as well as B12 are key components of Section B. B8 will list the flood zone. B9 will give the base flood elevation, if applicable. B12 holds information for a coastal barrier resources system and otherwise protected area. For additional information about these areas, please consult the Flood Insurance Manual. Section C provides elevation information for the structure. C1 indicates whether the elevations are based on construction drawings, a building that's in the course of construction, or finished construction. Structures whose elevations are taken from construction drawings or are based on a building that's in the course of construction are required to submit an updated elevation certificate when construction has been completed. C2 verifies the datum in Section B. C2A through H will indicate the elevation of the different levels of the structure. The lowest floor guide will reference where these sections are located. This section is also the section used when determining the lowest floor for rating. C2A is the top of the bottom floor. That does include basements, crawl spaces, or enclosure floors. C2B is the top of the next higher floor. C2C is reserved for V zones only and indicates the bottom of the lowest horizontal structural member. C2D is the top of the slab from a garage. C2E is going to indicate the elevation of any machinery or equipment that services the building. C2F lists the lowest adjacent grade, while C2G indicates the highest adjacent grade. C2H is the lowest adjacent grade at the lowest elevation of a deck or stairs, which does include structural support. Section D includes information about the licensed surveyor, the licensed engineer, or the licensed architect that's creating the elevation certificate, who is authorized by law to certify elevation information that's contained in sections A through C. This section also must include the signature, the date, the license number, and or the official seal of the individual completing the elevation certificate. Simply put, the licensed surveyor, licensed engineer, or licensed architect that completes Section C must also complete Section D and verify their licensing information. When asked the certificate date on the flood insurance application, enter the date that's found in Section D. The second part of Section D allows the licensed surveyor, licensed engineer, or licensed architect to provide additional comments. If additional comments are written in this section, a signature will also be required. When working with the elevation certificate, make sure to check this section. Information here provides instrumental items on how to rate a determined risk. An example of a comment in this section could be that the machinery and equipment located in the enclosure is an air conditioning unit, or the structure is a mobile home that is elevated on a solid brick wall foundation. If you have questions about the elevation certificate, feel free to contact the customer service phone number that's listed on the screen. Looking for marketing information? Spend some time on agents.floodsmart.gov. Thank you for taking your time to learn more information about the flood program. We hope to see you again on a future presentation.